Chris DuBois, welcome. Glad having you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll have a chat today about what's changing in the industry. For people that don't know you, you've been in the agency space, helping digital agencies and various kinds of creative agencies with creating offers. But it seems now that it's getting a little bit of a broader angle of figuring out the go-to-market strategy. So let's have a chat about what changes in the industry, especially that we have a turn of the year and, well, the market changes a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm noticing, but 10 years ago, right, you could just throw SEO on your website, just say, we're an SEO agency. And like that could have been good enough. Like if the right person found you at the right time, it was fine. But now people know that they can go back to Google, type in SEO agencies, and they're going to find 1,000 different agencies that you're in competition with. And so I call this service saturation.
Exactly.
And it's super apparent now because like even just within the HubSpot ecosystem, I've typed in SEO agencies that are on HubSpot and you get like 3,000 results. And it says, and even better, HubSpot's headline says something like the best, 3,000 SEO agencies. I'm like, well, they can't all be the best, right? Like, come on, that's just bad marketing. But so I'm seeing that as like the big challenge is that everyone's still running their agency as if they can get by with just showing their services. But every time most agencies, right, have a services page and on it, they just list everything they do. And when the issue is when you do that, you're inviting comparison. You're putting this on your page and someone's going to say, okay, well, you charge this much money. You do these things. Let me go compare you to everyone else who does it and find the cheapest bidder. Like that's what's going to happen every single time. And so a lot of what I'm doing is trying to get people to see that your offer, right, this transformation that you can take your client through is what really matters. It's not the actual service. It's like that big promise, that dream outcome that someone wants to achieve. But in doing work on so many offers with agencies, I'm realizing that their entire go-to-market strategies are just not optimized for 2025 as we're going into this now.
Right.
And so they're relying on all of these methods that used to work in the past, and they admit that they're not seeing the same results, yet they're not doing anything different in order to get the results they're actually after.
Which is, book definition of insanity.
Right.
Doing
Exactly.
more of the same that doesn't work and hoping it will start working for you, right?
Yeah. And I'll take it a step further. It's so like that's, the common phrase, like in definition of insanity is expecting the same thing or doing the same thing with expecting a different result. But I think it's even when you do the same thing, expect a different result, but you know that there's something else out there you could be doing, right? Like the person who doesn't know that there's any other way and just thinks this is how we have to do it, they're not actually going to go insane. But it's when you, somewhere inside of you, you know that there's something else you could be doing, which any marketing agency should know that because you're out there in marketing, like you're doing marketing, right? Like you have to be researching and staying at the top of your game and doing it. So like, there's a different way. Why are you not trying it on your own business?
Yeah. Yeah. And you touched on so many subjects which I can relate to. So one of that is like market saturation. I totally see that. And just for the listeners that are not super aware with like our backgrounds, you come more from the agency background. My focus is more on the creative ecosystem and people doing visuals, whether it's film, video, motion design, 3D, architecture, or whatever. But yeah, I've also run digital agencies in the past. So I'm seeing a lot of parallelities between what you're saying about the market saturation in the agency ecosystem with what's happening in the creative space. And essentially my diagnosis is that the industry has matured. And with that, obviously we have the market saturation with oversupply of services. So that's completely in line. But also I had another like broader reflection on that because, I started my business 20 years ago. It was 2004 or 5. And, computers were a novel thing at that time and the internet was new. And doing things on a computer, whether they are visual or, doing websites or whatever, that was sufficiently novel on its own to put you on the bleeding edge. And, guess what? 2007, the iPhone came out. I mean, there was the internet boom, then the iPhone came out. And, today everybody's got a computer in their pocket capable of doing all these things. So all of a sudden, it's not just about the industry maturing and market saturation. It's also about the technology going from innovation to like everyday commonality, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And even going back to the like agencies just trusting that the way they did things in the past is going to keep working. Like just this year, how many advancements in AI have come out? Like you can't do things the way you used to and trust, like I could have a company hire a couple interns and give them AI and they can churn out blog posts, right? Yes, they won't be the best blog posts. They're not going to be fully SEO optimized and they won't fit into the exact strategy that you would normally deliver. But like as a company owner who's just trying to get some blog posts out because I heard that's what I have to do, like I'm seeing the result, right? Like I'm seeing my team creating these. And so I'm only going to know that, hey, they're not creating like these perfectly optimized articles 3 months, 6 months down the road. But so over the short term, like that tech just erased my need for working with agencies. And so now the narrative of being a marketing agency needs to move from, hey, we're going to create these 6 posts for you every month to, hey, we're going to make sure that you're strategically doing the right things, because writing posts is not going to work. It's not going to move the needle for you anymore the way it used to. And so your entire narrative has to change around the problem if you expect people to actually listen to you.
Exactly. I can totally relate to that. And this is what I call a transition. And, we're not originals with that, because pretty much everybody who's established in the consulting space says more or less the same, meaning go past the service business and transition to consulting or expertise business, whatever you call it. You called it an offer for some time. I think talking about it as of a go-to-market strategy or transformation makes a lot of sense. But all in all, we're talking pretty much about the same things. And yes, I just posted on LinkedIn a simple question. Do you think that in 2025, the world needs one more undifferentiated creative agency, another motion design studio, another 3D company, elevating your brand with the power of visuals, et cetera, right? And I think it's the time where, the market has been ruthless for us for the last 2 years. Not so much in the agency ecosystem, more so on the creative side, on the visual side. But yes, even if you're looking at the traction rate for the industry for agencies, we're seeing a significant slowdown. It's not maybe like entire industry folding, but there is a significant slowdown of growth, at least in theory and on paper. So with markets being that harsh for the last 2 years, I think we're arriving at the point where hoping for business as usual coming back is more delusional than ever. And I think the time to take action is now. Curious what you think about it.
No, I agree. I think everywhere that you would normally get clients now, the entire like mode of achieving that is different. So I work with Partner Hub, and so we talk to a lot of agencies who are looking to build up their partnership networks and work with tech companies and stuff and build all that out. And a majority of them are partnering for leads, where like we've done enough research. We have a study that just came out, and I can give you the link to share with anyone. But what we found is that the agencies who are partnering to actually provide a better experience to their clients are being more successful in their partnerships. But a majority of agencies are just trying to get more leads through those partnerships. And so when we started looking at the different ecosystems like HubSpot, Salesforce, ClickUp, all of these different like places where agencies say, well, if I do work on this specific platform, they will give me leads because I'm in their ecosystem.
Oh, please.
Right. And 2 years ago, it was fine. That was like, you could get some leads, right? Because there weren't that many agencies doing it. But now we have what I'm calling the starving sibling effect, where those ecosystems still have leads coming in and they want to give them to agencies, but there's so many agencies that they can't feed everybody. And so you think the ecosystem is going to save you, but it's completely different. And so how you go into these ecosystems, even that has to change. You have to be like going in and now making direct like connections with sales reps, right? Work like go to HubSpot and you don't say, hey, we do all this for HubSpot. It's like, no, I need to go make a relationship with that rep who can continuously send me leads because he knows I'm going to close those deals for him and help him as an asset. And so now you're co-selling and getting these deals across, and that's what makes you more valuable. Versus like I was a HubSpot agency and I knew HubSpot every now and then would just send me leads and I could just, they were super easy to close. I'd get them in, I'd get them some ongoing services, and it wasn't hard. And like when we got some website projects from HubSpot directly, because they could do that with their partners and say, hey, we need to get these landing pages built. Can you do them for us? And so we had projects, we had recurring revenue coming in, completely changed now that the entire ecosystem is like doubled in size. But that's the same with Salesforce, with every other potential ecosystem that you
Well,
can
I
be
think
getting into.
Yeah, I hear you. This is, for some reason, this is a chapter that I somehow missed because I was in the agency ecosystem around 2005 to maybe 10. So that was probably before the rise of HubSpot inbound bubble or whatever that was. But yeah, I remember very well like how the business was different at that time. Like, my first company, we did put together a decent Flash website for ourselves, which was content managed, which was a novelty at that time. And we got a bunch of awards for that. And that drove business for the next few years, right? It's something which is absolutely insane to assume today. It's just not happening anymore. And then I had a few episodes where like I got into film and I shot a film, it got viral, and I was, flown all over the world shooting for different companies because I had expertise that was craved, but social media was sufficiently unsaturated that it was sufficient to put good stuff out there to cut through.
Right.
And right now, all these things, this just doesn't work anymore. Same for content marketing, right? I started exploring something around film. I put my expertise out there. That was the early years of content marketing. And it was sufficient to position yourself as an expert and convert into business instantly, right? It's not happening anymore. So we arrive at this situation where it's a little bit apocalyptic, and I'm curious of your take on this, because I hear what you're saying on the collapse of the downstream from software providers ecosystem, so like HubSpot and all these kind of stuff. We're seeing a massive crisis in inbound, but inbound understood not as the HubSpot ecosystem, but as generating leads through thought leadership, content marketing, and all this kind of stuff, or through internet. I mean, websites and all this kind of stuff. At the same time, everybody's flooded with insane amount of irrelevant AI-supported outreach and research. And so inbound collapsed, outbound collapsed. And what's your take on it? Like, what is it that from 2025 we have to focus on and move towards, assuming that these two channels are maybe not entirely dead, but the game is entirely different right now?
You're right. Yeah. So you reminded me of something that you were just saying with like, you used to be able to just put something out on social media, right? And get it. Yeah, now there's way more noise and stuff. And we'll get into that in a second. But the market, as it matures, the way you talk about the problem needs to change. And so when you're in like a very emerging market, when it's brand new, it's not, hey, let me tell you why I'm better at all this. Like, no, I still need to convince you that like doing social media marketing is even important for your business, right? Or creating the video content, why that's important. Like when those were emerging, I just had to prove to you that this was a new way and it could be better. Now we're past that, right? We know that we need to do video marketing. We need to do social marketing. Everyone needs a website. All of these things are super critical. I need to go in and convince you why I'm better than someone else. What makes me different than the other agencies? So I see this a lot with agencies where they're still coming in and trying to convince people they need a good website. It's like, that's not a question. Like everyone knows they need it. It's whether they're willing to spend money with you to get it. And that comes down to the promise you're willing to make for them. But so to get back to the question of like with the inbound and outbound collapse and stuff and like what's happening here, I think it comes back to, we need to talk about the problem in a way that actually resonates with people. When you look at the AI content, when you look at like what most people are churning out on every platform, it's very much like me focused. This is the solution I can give you. But if you can get so clear on the problem that you solve and you can put it in front of people in a way that resonates with them and that they hear you, they understand, they say like, yes, I have that, right? Then they associate you as the only person who can help them get out of that problem. And so you focus on the problem, you paint a clear picture of the future, which is the outcome, and then you highlight that solution. And just by doing that with your marketing, it's way easier to attract people because you're not going, like AI can't know all of the ins and outs of every single problem unless someone else has already said these things. And so, yeah, I think that's the issue.
Oh,
Problem first
right,
messaging.
right. I hear you. I think we're looking at a problem that's a little bit more complex because if I look at the market, yes, I agree with you that there is a lot of people that don't question even the necessity of having a website or whatever that is. And yes, I totally agree that there are still companies that instead of putting the consultative hat on and diagnosing the problem, they start trying to prove the solution. I think there are still market pockets where there is a lack of awareness of like how all these things in marketing work and how to put them together. And yes, maybe people are aware that they need a website. They maybe need a CEO. Maybe they don't need it anymore. Some videos, some thought leadership, etc., etc. So they kind of know it. But the problem we're facing is that there is so much competing sales information, so it's very much biased. And it's not a dot problem. It's a problem of how you connect the dots. And in my perspective, the expertise that studios, agencies, consultants, and experts can bring is being very practical and bringing real life experience and expertise in how you connect these dots moving forward and not just, being in a dots business, right?
Yeah. I mean, and yes, I think every agency needs to be leaning into the strategic expertise that they're able to provide by just seeing problems more frequently than anyone else, right? You're going to have, say, 10 clients this month, and you can be solving the same problem for all 10 of them and stuff. So like you get to learn faster. And so that becomes your edge in the market to be able to sell that, like, this is the problem. This is the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And I have this solution that I have now done with so many different people. And I know the ins and outs and the intricacies and every way that we can approach this in order to get the exact result hereafter. You don't see a lot of agencies talking like that, though.
Well, that depends on the perspective. I'll challenge you here a little bit because there are people who are aware of like how to sell these things and the entire productization thing and like moving from generic services to productized services. And there is a lot of good things in that, meaning a productized service is better than a generic service, no doubt about it. But at the same time, I have a feeling, looking at the industry from a multitude of angles, that everybody keeps trying to sell this way these days. And this results in a kind of a cookie cutter solution proliferation. Now, it's an open question whether the market is already aware of that, or maybe they feel overwhelmed with cookie cutter solutions, or maybe productization is a novelty. I think we'll find a full spectrum, right? But I think an interesting problem is this perspective bias, right? What is it that we're seeing? Is it the cutting edge, or is it what everybody else is seeing, right? You see what I mean, right?
I think so. I'm seeing more agencies just trying to sell the way they used to, which is you need a website. Here are all the reasons you need a website. Like, let's go. We can be the ones to build that for you. And whether disregarding whether it's, a very generalized offer or they have it productized or anything, it's just the way they're talking. Like, the problem is not resonating the same way because everyone knows that the winning companies are already doing that. You don't need to convince me I need a website. You need to convince me I need you to build me a website.
And that's fair.
So I think once more agencies start realizing that, it's like, what is your differentiator, right? It's not just that, well, we build websites faster. It's like, no, you can't, because someone else could come in and beat you on that, right? Anything that you can add an ER to, faster, better, like we can do it cheaper. We can do, like, someone can beat you at that. It's not somewhere to do this.
Yeah, better is not a differentiation. It's not a value proposition. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think what you need to do is take a step back and look at the problem that you specifically solve with that website. And so because I believe niching comes down to the problem that you solve. And then you add the layer on of what industry do we solve this problem for, so that you can get your language hyper clear. And so, because like if you can solve the same problem for HR across any industry, doesn't matter, right? It could be the same exact problem, but a tech company is going to talk about it very differently than a manufacturing company, right?
Exactly.
And so we're not going to reach the same target audience, even if we can solve the exact same problem. So we start narrow that problem, and it could be that, hey, we create websites to help these types of people do this specifically. Like, and for like a website, say we're selling a website to HR, right? A couple pages of this website. It's like for a very specific reason, so that your team has clarity around X, Y, and Z, or new hires can see all of these things. Like that is the problem that we solve for. So down the road, you can see this exact outcome. Rather
Yeah,
than
you
just
are
saying,
absolutely right, because this is, I think this boils down to the problem of like, what is the value versus perception of value. And as you said, many companies, once you have a solution, you can cater towards multitude of verticals, but it doesn't mean that the perception of value will be sufficiently strong, right? So by narrowing down on specific niches where you can pick their language properly, you make much better of a value proposition and perception of value, right? Because they feel it's crafted for them. So you're absolutely right about it.
I'll take that. On one side, because there is so much more competition for agency, right? Anyone with a laptop now can go sit in their mom's basement and create an agency. And it's like, you're doing the work now. Like it's never been easier to start an agency. And so it's now harder because there's just more competition. So even if everybody else sucks, it's still, you have to sort through all of these other agencies in order to find the one that's actually right for you. And so it's only becoming harder to be able to do this.
That's right. Especially that all of them look the same, and Google is not helping you anymore because Google's quality of results has plummeted recently. It's just barely usable. And at the same time, I'm seeing a massive crisis of proof of relevance and trust proof, like things like testimonials, whether they are written or video. There is such a tremendous pressure on like fabricated social proof that it just doesn't work anymore. And there is a question, how do you prove you're trustworthy? And, you know, in my perspective, what changed is that marketing for quite a good while, I said once in an article, it will be beautifully unscalable, which means it boils down to like sitting down with people and talking face to face and building trust in one-on-one relationships, because all other things are so easily faked. Right.
Yep.
This is dystopian, but that's the reality we're dealing with to some extent.
So I had a sales conversation this past week with an agency, and I checked out their website right beforehand. And they had like 20 different company logos on their site for all their, past clients. And through those logos, this is one of the first times this has ever happened to me. I knew exactly what industry they worked in based off that. And that gave me some confidence. Like I wasn't hiring them, right? They were trying to hire me, but it gave me immediate confidence that these guys know what they're doing within that space, because of home services. So like I saw a logo for a pressure washing company, for a lawn care company, and I could tell what those companies did by their logos. And so I had zero, if I was a home care company coming to the site, I have no doubt that you know how to solve my problem just based off who you've worked with. And so when we start talking like trust building, that's a super easy way to actually do it. But most agencies are afraid to turn down revenue. And so they'll take anyone who comes in. But now I keep diluting what I'm actually doing. And actually, simple math problem, right? So I try getting all of my clients to have one audience, one service, one problem. Now, for most agencies, let's assume you have 10 clients right now, right? And of those 10 clients, they're in 7 different industries. Okay, so 7 is our current number. Now, of the services you offer, let's say you just 3. Most agencies are offering more than 3 services. Let's say you have 3 services. That becomes 21 variables just right there, right? That you would have to pay attention to based off the industry. Now, let's say you solve for 2 or 3 different problems, 2 problems. That now gives us 42 different variables that you have to pay attention to constantly. Tell me that you can get a clear message and like clear positioning and your team is super aligned on everything you do, if you have 40 something variables instead of one. And so
You're
it's
right.
like they keep watering down what they're actually able to do by just taking on more and saying like, oh yeah, we can do ads. And like, even though they've never done ads before, right? Oh yeah, we can solve that problem, even though it's something they have no idea what to do. It's like, just stop chasing the revenue and realize that by focusing on one thing, you can become way more profitable. So one, the revenue coming in is going to go further, and it's not like you can charge a more premium rate and keep more of it in your pocket. But then also you're going to be like that client who booked a call with me, where I can go to your website and know that you're for me before I even talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the perfect scenario.
The perception of value thing. I think the conclusion on this is that obviously there is still so many companies suffering with the value proposition itself, but
Yes.
another layer that I would add to that, shifting towards 2025 mindset, is that it's not so much only about the value proposition, but also the perception of value. So how convincing it becomes. And I think this wraps to the beginning of the conversation when you mentioned, we're one of 3,000 leading SEO companies on HubSpot, right? But if you visit one of these companies, and I did this experiment recently because I think Max Trailer was doing some program and we started chatting about this HubSpot ecosystem. And I started looking at these agencies, and that was like a trip back to 2010s or something like that. Like taking a time machine. But anyways, so you're one of these 3,000 leading companies providing SEO services, but at the same time you visit their website and guess what? They have 37 different services that they are listed in top 3,000 for. So I think these are leftovers from the era where the market was not matured, unsaturated, and generally we kind of resist change and clinch to what was instead of embracing the harsh reality that things changed. In my perspective, I have the other way of thinking about it is like, one thing is transitioning from services to consultative selling and expertise business, but the other one is like shifting from supply-based market to demand-based. And what I mean by that is, when we started our agency 5, 10, 20 years ago, the model was that, you're good at something, you're good at filming, you're good at video, you learn how to do 3D and you're good at 3D. So you offer these skills to the market, and that was sufficient because it was unsaturated and it was novel, right? So that was supply-based business models. And guess what? When the market gets saturated and matures, in my perspective, what needs to happen is that you really need to start shifting towards demand-based business model, which is spend 99% of your time researching the market, getting to know the customers, getting to know their problems. And once you spot a real need, a problem that has not been solved yet or has not been solved by 1 million people, that's where you should invest your expertise in and put together a decent team and quickly start solving this problem. But like finding the problem worth solving, this is the essence of the new business model in my perspective moving forward.
Yeah, and you brought up kind of a point in there where it's like, it's not necessarily just looking for a problem no one else has solved, because there might also be a reason no one else has tried solving that problem. Like it's not profitable. It's not like others have tried and they just all fail. And so it's like you almost want to find a problem where there's a few people solving it. So you have some evidence that like, yeah, this is a problem that we can tackle, but you also have the ability to differentiate because there's only a couple others.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know the experience of like firsthand of confusing a desolate island with a paradise. A couple years ago, I came up with this breakthrough idea of creating a brand and creative powerhouse for the space industry. And like my mind was blown because I haven't found almost any agencies in that space. There were maybe 3, maybe 5 worldwide. So I thought, shit, I hit my jackpot, right? This is the next big thing. And I worked on this meticulously for, I don't know, almost a year, learning about this market and trying to sell high-ticket services. And all that concluded in learning that this industry is unoccupied, not for no reason. I mean, there is a reason there is nobody there. These people are so resistant to understanding the need for these services. So I guess it will take another 5 or 10 years until this industry matures sufficiently to realize that they need marketing, they need branding and all these kind of things, right? But again, the lesson here is like confusing a desolate island with a paradise, and I'm guilty of that. So you were right. And I really like how David Baker puts it in one of his books, where he says, you need to find a spot where there is some competition, like 10 to 100 or whatever the numbers are, because it proves to you that there is a market for that.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think, things are changing really quickly, and there are problems that are boiling because the markets change really quickly. It only accelerates now, and there are new problems to be discovered. It's just that they are not like low-hanging fruits. It's not what's getting surfaced on social media, because people tend to converge on things which is algorithmically pleasing. So, if someone is telling you, here are 7 problems worth solving in 2025, this is surely a false positive, right? Because they are trying to make money on selling this information. So we talked about mindset. What are the tools or specific things you'd recommend people in the agency space adapt moving forward in 2025 and, battling with all these issues we're facing?
Yeah, so I don't know that there's any like one key tool that I would point out. I think everyone does need to adopt AI and enable their business as much as it's going to disrupt everything, right? Like if you're not using AI, you're at a disadvantage. But I think how a lot of agencies use it is wrong. There's a saying that you shouldn't outsource your main thing, right? Like whatever you're good at, don't give it to someone else to do. Yet one of the first things agencies do when adopting AI is they try to outsource what they're good at. And so SEO agencies or like content creation agencies, right, are using it to write content. It's like, that's why people hire you. It's literally the thing. So if AI can do it, why would they hire you? They can just use AI to do it. And so instead, I have this whole like order of AI operations for agencies, where there's this continuum that I believe in, where it's on one side you have efficiency, and on the other side you have innovation. And you as an agency owner get to choose where on this continuum do you sit. You want to have a super innovative industry where you're just being creative with everything, and you want to take risks and try this new whatever cutting edge stuff, right? Or do you want to be more like a factory where you just keep churning? You're going to have a higher profit margin because you're redoing a lot of the same things, but you're never going to be known as like that iconic brand who's testing new waters and stuff, right? But you get to choose where you sit on this. The goal, though, with using AI should be to start on the efficiency portion of this continuum, find the tasks that can make you more efficient, and let AI do those things, because AI cannot be innovative right now. Like the technology itself can, but it can only innovate on things that people have already told it, right? It looks at whatever is out there in society and it's going to compile, and it might put together some new ideas, but not in the way you can as this expert who has seen the problem so many times. And so we want to use AI for the efficiency side to maximize human innovation. And so when you start doing that and you start implementing AI, solutions in order to keep becoming more innovative, you now actually can increase the value that you're able to deliver to your clients, because you can spend more time getting creative, being innovative, doing the things that they've hired you for. It doesn't matter that like the way that document is processed, right? Or like it looks. Doesn't matter. Like make it once, let AI fill in the blanks every single time, because it's just busy work. Doing data manipulation and like moving things around, right? Plugging in different numbers. Like you don't need a human to go do that. You can let AI do it. So now you spend more time studying the numbers, figuring out what do these mean. And it's such an opportunity that's lost, I think, on a lot of agencies. And so
Well, I would be a little bit more optimistic here, because I think luckily or thankfully we are past the peak hype moment of the AI, and people stop confusing dreams with reality and like false promises and all these marketing yada yada narratives being, fed from Altmans and all these guys, and start seeing through that. And that means that there was even a negative associations related to the use of AI or mentions of AI in products. And I think a lot of what you're saying is true, that the AI will be embraced and will be useful and is already useful for all the office, all the legwork and all this kind of like efficiency operations things where it's doing really simple things, but it's doing it so efficiently and like really freeing resources for everything else. Yeah, I had a conversation yesterday on a podcast with a person who actually advocated for this kind of use on the back office in operations, etc. I think this also ties in with like when you mentioned this continuum between innovation and efficiency. This ties very well with the concept that I use working with my clients, which is the value method and the continuum between execution business on the bottom and expertise or value business on the top. And the higher you are to the top, the more business stake you have, the more business responsibility you have at a client's business, and the more opportunity you have to shape your profitable pricing strategies by implementing performance pricing or value-based pricing and all these kind of things. And it's mind-blowing to me because there are so many firms out there that heard about value-based pricing but fail to implement it because they don't understand this continuum, and they don't understand that if you are in the efficiency business, value-based pricing is not something that you can realistically implement simply because you're in the realm of efficiency, right? And yes, you will be compared to other vendors. Yes, you will have competition. You will not lead with value or with like high innovation value, but your value will be around efficiency, being faster, a little bit expensive, etc., etc. And this is not bad. Like being on the bottom doesn't mean it's a bad place for a business, because even if you look like at large VFX houses, that's exactly what they do. They perfectly realize they are on the bottom of the food chain, that they have minimal stake at the final output in business things, but they realize they are the factory to move all the bits and pieces, and they are in the efficiency business. And that's good because you have companies which are thriving there and which are highly profitable, right? So it's just about clarity in which business you are. Are you in the innovation business? Are you in the risk-taking business? Or you're in the efficiency business? So offer, go-to-market, value-based mindset. What else? Relationships, right?
Yeah, a lot more of that necessary. Nearly every agency founder that I've ever talked to came into the business not because they wanted to create a business, but because they knew they could do something, right? They had a way of doing something, and they're like, let me go do this for people. And then next thing you know, they're running a full agency and the whole accidental agency owner thing. But what I'm noticing is that not a lot of them have ever taken the time to fully think about like, what am I trying to build here? Like, what is my end goal? And when you actually map that out, right? And you like, hey, I want to exit with this much money at this time, or maybe I just want a business that gives me the free time to be able to go do my things. That's really going to influence how you operate your agency and the things that you're doing. You might have to be more on the efficiency side if you want to guarantee that you have 20 hours a week that you have to work and then the rest of it's your free time. You might have to be on the efficiency side. You can't, because if there's no guardrails on that, on the innovation side, then you're screwing yourself, right? And so one of the things that I'm doing with all of my clients first, like we really need to nail down, like, what are we building here? Like, let's get into agency design and then look at your offering, then look at, like how we go to market. How do we do all of these different things?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think this discussion is much needed. Coincidentally, just yesterday or day before, I was giving a talk at Spixie, which is a creative conference. And I focused on these things like how to stay sane in this industry. Two key subjects I was talking about was like defining success and defining failure. Because we're seeing this weird moment where the market verifies a lot of companies and many firms fold and many more will do so. And with that comes a mass of failures. And, all these accidental owners that you mentioned who have been living this amazing, golden age of creativity for the last 2 decades, all of a sudden, many of them face a situation where their business fails. We're not prepared for failure. And one of the things that we can borrow from, Silicon Valley startup founder mentality is like embracing failure as part of the game and normalizing it and removing the equation mark between failure, like business failure and personal failure. Right? These are two very different things. The other thing is the question of, is this business still serving me? Right. So that's the question you start with. And I think there is so much merit in that. Because we don't ask these questions. I didn't ask these questions running my businesses over 20 years. Did you?
Right. I have, because
You
I'm
have.
seeing
Okay.
this so many, well, being, so like I stepped into the agency world as just as an employee, right? Like a team member. And I worked my way up to head of operations and then CEO of that agency, and then stepped back. So when I was doing as CEO of that agency, I was spending a lot of time working. And so when I started my own business, it was like, okay, well, what is important to me? And I actually mapped this out in a way that I get, like, my Mondays and Fridays are completely blocked.
Mhm.
I will not have meetings unless it's a meeting I want to have. Coincidentally, we're meeting on a Friday.
Right.
Hey. But
But
like
these
that's
are
a
these are
huge,
casual future crafting Fridays, so it doesn't count.
yeah, right. But like just doing that has made this so, like, I know that in any given week, I only have to survive 3 days of like meetings and head down doing hard work. And I have 2 days that I'm still working, but I'm doing the stuff I want to work on. And I'm enjoying this so much more. And then my week, like I wrap up every day around 5-ish PM, and I get to go be with my family and like do, like, when I was in the Army, my kids could go very long periods of time without seeing me, right? Like I would be out of the house before they were awake. I would be home when they were already asleep. So like maybe they'd see me on a weekend if I wasn't working. But like now I'm home. Why am I not taking advantage of working from home and actually seeing them every day?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, it's like, it's been mind blowing, like the things I can do with a business and use it as a vehicle to achieve my life goals
Mhm.
while simultaneously helping other people by creating value in their own businesses and doing this.
Exactly. Exactly. So how old were you when you started your company, or what was the point of your career? For how long have you been in the business already?
I've been doing this full time since April of this year.
Okay.
So
And working for other agencies, for how long have you been doing this?
I got out of the Army in 2019 and spent about 9 months as a marketer, just learning the ropes and so that stuff. And
Mhm.
then I became head of operations. After
Right.
a couple years, became CEO. Did that for a
Gotcha.
bit,
Gotcha.
and then,
So
yeah, and then I stepped down last June, and then kind of worked with them part time while I figured out what I want to do with my life, what I want to be when I grow up, and yeah, just decided on this. And so,
very different careers, because I started my first agency was when I was 20 something, and from that time the roller coaster started, and I was only running new and different kinds of agencies. So I was always on my own, always running my own businesses and learning along the way. And I was so busy, I didn't have to ask these questions like, what does success mean to me?
right,
But that's good at the same time, because I was always chasing something which was freaking exciting, whether that was like filmmaking, time lapsing, directing, or whatever that was, right? But yeah, like the other thing related to success is we have to define it. And I realized that not many people actually take to define it, sit down, slow down for a minute to define what a success means for them. But guess what? Everybody's chasing it. And the risk is that if you don't define it for yourself, you're probably chasing someone else's vision of success. And usually, coincidentally, it's designed by Mark Zuckerberg for you, or Meta, or whatever other tech companies brainwashing you, right? So you better
yeah,
go do it for yourself.
and I'll take that a step further. I don't think people define most of the terms that they use, and so we all know, like, the saying, you can't improve what you don't measure, but you really can't measure something unless you define it. And so we have all of these business metrics, all of these metrics in life that we say are important. But have you ever sat down to literally just go through and say, this is what this means? So like success for you is different than me. And so if we can sit down and define what that is, like, it makes it much easier to actually measure and then improve it. And so like I have actually this tonight, every month, I go back and look at critical terms in my life and say, like, what is the definition of these terms? And I'll look at like other terms that I should be applying, right? Like what does fitness mean for me? Because like I can go purchase a gym membership, right, and say, yeah, I just want to be fit. But that means something completely different to me than someone else. And so if I want to go start looking at workout plans and other things, I need to go back to like, what's the definition of fitness for me? Because it's even shifted for me in my life. At one point, it was like when I was in the Army, I had to be at my peak performance constantly because it literally could be a life or death situation, right? Now, I just need to be able to play with my kids and not hurt in the next morning. Like, Like,
Right.
that's it. Like, I would love
Right.
to
Right.
look fit, but like realistically, if I can just move around and like still squat and like not have all of these issues, I'm good. And so the definition has changed over time, but that means it also changes how I measure it and then how I improve it. And so like, yeah, I think having some sort of exercise where you actually go through and just how am I defining these terms, whether it's with your business, your life, whatever you want. It's probably a really good one to do with relationships. Like go talk to your spouse. How do we define success?
Yeah.
Right? Go to your business partner, go to your team. How do we want to define it? Because like, it's not just how I want this, right? Like, let's build some culture within this organization. Like, how do we define, like a good quarter? And
Right.
like, and just look at it that way. And it's, yeah, it can go a long way.
Right. Right. I think these are super important questions and subjects, and this is not being discussed so often in the agency space because we're so fucking, focused on business. But like, you cannot divorce business and life. It's just delusional to think so. Just to conclude on the last thought on success, your experience is primarily on the US market. My track record is a little bit more diverse and global. I've known and worked with companies in the US, in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia. And, I come from Central Europe. So at some point I came to a conclusion that, building a $2 million studio from Central Europe is so much a different challenge compared to building that in LA, to building that in Paris, in London, in Shanghai, or in Saudi Arabia, right? These are entirely different markets, entirely different realities, entirely different market velocities. And the issue is we all fall in the trap of comparison, right? Because everybody's throwing numbers at you. Everybody's asking, okay, how large is your studio? What's your annual revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And we fall in the trap of comparing ourselves, forgetting where we come from, right? Am I doing this business in LA? Am I doing this business in Paris, right? If you are in a fashion business, Paris and New York is the epicenter and where you want to be. If you are in the real estate business, probably Middle East is your favorite playground, right? So make it easier for you. Don't compare yourself to people on the other side of the world that have entirely different conditions, entirely different market that they have to perform under, right?
Yep. It's actually interesting. So during my weekly Q&A call, one of the agencies that joined was they're doing like account-based marketing and stuff, but they're starting to move up market. But at the same time they're moving up market, they realize essentially their entire leadership team and a lot of their team members live in Europe. They're all Americans, but they just live in different places in Europe now. So like, we should probably go after the European market, because when we did the numbers and like random, it's like, wow, huge untapped opportunity here. And maybe I shouldn't say it on the podcast because now more people will go out and do it, right? It was interesting. Just they were comparing themselves to what they should be doing. Like for American market, they're an American company, they're doing this. And it's like, yeah, but you guys can also just do that somewhere else. And it shifts the game entirely, right? Not only are you looking at a different market, which means you're moving into a different game, but you're also moving into a different like geographic market, which now adds another layer of differentiation. So rather than basing it off like any of your goals, your targets, how you do things off what you already know, it's like, no, let's redefine all of this and start from scratch.
Cool, man. That was a blast. It was supposed to be 25, 30 minutes. We've run for 53. And I think
or nothing.
Let's call it a day. It was a good one. I enjoyed. I guess you did too. And good flow. Well, thanks for coming and see you soon. Cheers.
That's good, man.